Hello, I am Chase from Bradford, and today I'm going to be answering the number one question that I get on all of my videos. Why do you dress that way? Why do you dress in the manner in which you dress? And today I'm going to give a very fine-grained answer on a higher quality video. Now, the first thing that I need to say is I do not support any human political movement. I am a militant for non-anthropocentric empiricism and post-humanism. Now I'm going to get into some of my insignia. Now this is the STS-31 mission, and it was for the deployment of the Hubble Space Telescope. Astronaut Bruce McCandless was on this mission. This is the STS-82 mission, which upgraded the Hubble Space Telescope's systems. I'm going to zoom in on this, but this is pretty much the STS-51L mission, in which the Challenger space shuttle exploded, killing its crew members, including Krista McAuliffe, who was going to be the first teacher in space, and Ron McNair, who was going to play the saxophone in space. So I wear this as well. This pin represents the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer mission, and it is a particle physics experiment that was attached to the International Space Station, and it's a cosmic particle detector that looks for dark matter, antimatter, and other types of multi-messenger astrophysics. And I may be wrong here, but I think physicist Samuel Ting had something to do with this. Now, some of the future patches that I will have are the Shenzhou spacecraft patch and the Tiangong space station patch from Zhonghua. One more current patch that I have is, of course, the Apollo 11 patch, in which Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, whom I talked to on Instagram before he passed away, they went to the moon. So none of my insignia has anything to do with fascism, nationalism, liberalism, conservatism, libertarianism, anarchy, or anything of that sort. Now, to move on to some neuroscience, researchers at Yonsei University in Seoul, South Korea, use an fMRI to show that brain activity in regions like the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the posterior superior temporal sulcus, the tempoparietal junction, the insula, and striatum reflects validation within an organization and adherence to its standards. This neural activity is closely tied to positive self-assessment and group cohesion. So another reason to wear uniforms is to keep one disciplined and to keep one strict. So now I'm going to talk about this in a more chronological sense. The reason my clothing has been controversial is really due to events that have been taking place since about 2015 to 2016. So I'm going to talk about things before that time period first. So in the pre-Trump era, I started dressing like this in about 2010. If you want me to be technical, 2003 when I was in the marching band. But just dressing like this outside the marching band since about 2009, 2010. And the initial reason I did it was to become more disciplined, because trap music culture and Christian culture seemed to be the only things that African Americans around me wanted to do. So I wanted to differentiate myself by being more disciplined, being more empirical, and making a statement. And before Trump, people like Michael Jackson would dress like this with the cross strap and the armband. Janet Jackson would dress like this. will.i.am used to dress like this in the early 2010s. And I would like to say that my wife's father actually met will.i.am at Changi Airport. Now, here's where the transition starts, where things start to kind of go awry for people who dress like this. Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga, who actually dressed like this at a liberal event, I think campaigning for Hillary Clinton, I'm not sure, she was dressed like Michael Jackson. Yet she was accused of being a fascist. This is when it started, about 2016. Now I'm going to talk about some fMRI data. Liberals react based on their anterior cingulate cortex and insula, whereas conservatives behave based on their amygdala and insula. The anterior cingulate cortex functions are emotional bonding, fear conditioning, blind empathy, and an emotional response to pain. The amygdala's functions are defensive aggression, emotion, extrinsic motivation, and fear. So neither liberals, communists, capitalists, conservatives, or any of these people are neurologically capable of analyzing existence primarily based on experiments, measurements, systematic observations, and inferences. This is going to become more important later. Now, in the post-Trump era, I'm just going to be blunt. It's edgy little Euro-Americans that ruin this fashion. They ruin this fashion because they are either incels or they just don't like people of color. And they would go on 4chan and say very anti-Semitic things and use these wojaks of people who are dressed like this to weaponize certain things and just to make people feel bad. They like liberal tears. They like to make people feel horrible. And this is based off of their amygdala and their insula. Liberals overcorrected by banning certain things. I remember when my first video that I had that had some music in it that was industrial, they was like, this video can't stay up anymore. And that's when I started to see things changing. And this is really due to, Jan 6, Charlottesville, racism, masquerading as free speech, and all of this other kind of nonsense. Another thing that has actually come up as of late is this stupid Afrocentric fascist nonsense based off of Zamet and Afun. So when it comes to this Zamet nonsense that has also made it where people are comparing my fashion to his, there will be a separate video in which you can find here or in the description in which I rip apart this stupid dogma, in which both me and my wife rip apart this stupid dogma. Also, lastly, I'm going to say this. Bessie Coleman, the New Jersey State Police, Tanzania's army, and China's military wears a Sam Brown belt. And people have been conditioned to associate discipline with evil. When it comes to my mustache, Martin Luther King Sr. and ABC News contributor Pierre Thomas wears this same exact mustache. It's just that in this post-Trump era, it's just not acceptable. Now, the last thing I'm going to touch on is this. These days, another reason I dress like this is to do an experiment. So when I know a lot of people say I'm LARPing, but I do genuinely dress like this in public. But a lot of times it's as an experiment. So when I dress like this, I get a lot of people who ask me, are you a Black Panther? Mostly Black people come up to me when I'm dressed like this. However, if I dress like this, if I simply put on this peaked cap, which can't even really fit in the camera, mostly white people come up to me and ask me what's going on. And this is a good social experiment to know one's enemy and know oneself, to know how defective the human race is when it comes to anthropocentric and post-truth topics. So honestly, you all are very easily manipulated simply by non-verbal and non-logocentric fashion.